Welcome everyone to a brief trip to Goethe's Palermo in Sicily, where Goethe believed to have found the primordial plant, or at least believed to have found something close enough to what could be the Urpflanze, the proto-plant. I'm going to read two of Goethe's entries from 1787, when he spent time in Palermo around the Villa Giulia, what is today also the botanical garden of Palermo. And also the footage that you see here is footage I recorded a while back in Palermo around the botanical garden and Villa Giulia, which is where, again, Goethe believed to have found something close enough to the Urpflanze, where he thought that he would be able to distill what the proto-plant, the primordial plant, really is. I'm going to read these two entries here now, published in 1881, this translation is, and it was translated by the Reverend H.A.W. Morrison, and that translation can be found on gutenberg.org if you're interested. And after reading those two entries, I'm going to refer to one of his letters to Herder, where he says something really striking about the primordial plant and what scientifically will be possible if he has indeed found the form of the original or primordial plant, what it is that we can scientifically do with it. It's quite remarkable what he thinks will be possible, and also speaks to something that he addresses in Faust Part 2 of the tragedy, in the scene with the homunculus. And by the way, if you're interested in reading Goethe's Faust with me, feel free to join my course. The link to enroll is in the description of this video. So let's begin. Here is Goethe's entry from April the 16th in Palermo. Again, this is the year 1787. As we are obliged to anticipate our speedy departure from this paradise, I hoped today to spend a thorough holiday by sitting in the public gardens, and after studying the task I had set myself out of the Odyssey, taking a walk through the valley, and at the foot of the hill of Santa Rosalie, thinking over again my sketch of Nausicaa, and there trying whether the subject is susceptible of a dramatic form. All this I have managed, if not with perfect success, yet certainly much to my satisfaction. I made out the plan, and could not abstain from sketching some portions of it which appeared to me most interesting, and tried to work them out. And now on Tuesday, April the 17th, he has the following to say on the primordial plant. It is a real misery to be pursued and hunted by many spirits. Yesterday I set out early for the public gardens, with a firm and calm resolve to realize some of my poetical dreams. But before I got within sight of them, another spectre got hold of me, which has been following me these last few days. Many plants which hitherto I had been used to see only in pots and tubs or under glass frames stand here fresh and joyous beneath the open heaven, and as they here completely fulfill their destination, their natures and characters become more plain and evident to me. In presence of so many new and renovated forms, my old fancy occurred again to me. Might I not discover the Urpflanze, the primordial plant, among all these numerous specimens? Some such there must be, for otherwise how am I able at once to determine that this or that form is a plant, unless they are all formed after one original type? I busied myself, therefore, with examining wherein the many varying shapes differed from each other. And in every case I found them all to be more similar than dissimilar, and attempted to apply my botanical terminology. That went on rather well enough. Still, I was not satisfied. I rather felt annoyed that it did not lead further. My pet poetical purpose was obstructed. The gardens of Antinous all vanished. A real garden of the world had taken their place. Why is it that we moderns have so little concentration of mind? Why is it that we are thus tempted to make requisitions which we can neither exact nor fulfill? So, well, I wonder what he would say if he knew how extremely scattered our minds are these days. But in any event, don't you find it rather striking what he's got to say about here, of course, the primordial plant? What Goethe wanted to find was the primordial phenomena. The primordial phenomenon, that which genuinely appears, though, so not as, let's say, a Platonistic form in another world, but so that the genuine primordial plant form appears in every plant, whether that be a palm tree or a rose. So they must have something in common, phenomenologically speaking, that can be discerned, that can be found, and actually can be seen. And that one original type of which he speaks here, that is what he thought he had actually, to some degree, then seen, thanks to the nature that surrounded him here in Palermo. As he says here, that he found them all to be more similar than dissimilar. Yeah, and he could apply his botanical terminology to all the different types, but also precisely because here plants that he hadn't seen before in around Weimar or Frankfurt, let's say, but that he could see here in their natural environment. And as he says, stand here fresh and joyous beneath the open heaven, completely fulfilling their destination, having a telos. So it's quite striking and important that Goethe here speaks of telos, of the teleology of plants. So the ur-phenomenon, the original phenomenon, the primordial phenomenon of the plant, of what it means to be a plant, is the entelechy of a plant. And this he believed to see really in the Villa Giulia, or the gardens of Villa Giulia in Palermo. And now on to his letter to Herder. So here is his letter to Herder, which is quite a long letter, which he wrote exactly a month after his stay in Palermo. This was written in Naples on May the 17th. And I'm not going to read everything. It's quite a long letter, and I also haven't been able to find this in translation, so please bear with me. I'm going to translate this from the German. As I go ferner, muss ich dir vertrauen, I'm going to read the German first, dass ich dem Geheimnis der Pflanzenzeugung und Organisation ganz nahe bin. So he believes that he has to confess to Herder, he says, that I am now very close to the secret of the generation of plants and also their organization, their organic life. That's what he means by that. And that it is the simplest thing that can be thought. Unter diesem Himmel kann man die schönsten Beobachtungen machen. Again, underneath this sky, underneath this heaven, perhaps even of southern Italy, one can make the most beautiful observations. Den Hauptpunkt, wo der Keim steckt, habe ich ganz klar und zweifellos gefunden. So the central point, or the main point, where the seed or the germ or the sprout of all this lies, I have found quite clearly and without doubt. Everything else, and on the whole, I see also already quite vividly, but only a few points must be determined more precisely. He continues. Now let me read the German again. Die Urpflanze wird das wunderlichste Geschöpf von der Welt, welches mir die Natur selbst beneiden soll. Welches mich die Natur selbst beneiden soll. Now this is quite a striking sentence. Let me translate this. The primordial plant will be the most wondersome creation or creature of the world, for which even nature will be jealous of me, or for which even nature will envy me. Now this is quite striking, because he speaks of Geschöpf, which means really created creature, part of creation. He doesn't speak of a plant or a thing of nature or anything, a natürlicher Gegenstand or simply Pflanze, but he means Geschöpf. So that's quite striking. But also it seems to be that he's almost implying that he's the creator of the Urpflanze, because even nature will envy him for it. Now what's that supposed to mean? It seems that here what he implies when he speaks with Herder is that he's in finding the Urpflanze. He indeed actually makes the Urpflanze also. He makes a primordial plant in that he finds it. So it's a bit of a double movement. There are original phenomena that point to this original type, but there are at the same time, there is human interference with it. And it's the human being who has to find this original primordial type or this primordial pattern. I believe that's what he's saying here. And now something really radical by Goethe, the following. Mit diesem Modell und dem Schlüssel dazu kann man alsdann noch Pflanzen ins Unendliche erfinden, die konsequent sein müssen, etc. One second. With this model and key to it, one can then even invent plants ad infinitum. So we can invent infinite amounts of plants if we so desire with this model. Die konsequent sein müssen, das heißt die, wenn sie auch nicht existieren, doch existieren könnten und nicht etwa malerisch oder dichterische Schatten und Scheine sind. Now this is quite striking again, which have to be, and even if they do not exist, he makes this usual, ordinary distinction between being and existence. So they have metaphysical being, even if they may not yet exist. So they're not just mere poetic shadows, as he says. They're not just something made of fancy that we just imagine. No, they are actually something that can be made to exist. They are not shadows, nor mere semblance or illusion. Quite something else is going on. They are indeed and in fact real. They are real because they are extractions or extrapolated from or pulled out from the model of the original plant, which again, Goethe seems to think he's the maker of. So they have, even he says, eine innerliche Wahrheit und Notwendigkeit. They have an inner truth and necessity. Dasselbe Gesetz, and this is where it gets really, really radical, dasselbe Gesetz wird sich auf alles übrige Lebendige anwenden lassen. The same law will be applied, or will be possible, one will be able to apply to everything else that's alive. So once we find the original types, the primordial types of plants, of animals, maybe even of the human being, then we can produce ad infinitum more and more plants, animals, humans that don't exist yet and that are not imaginary, but that have, according to Goethe, real being, but at the same time, of course, they don't exist yet, but they can be made to exist. Now, this is perhaps taking it slightly too far, or maybe not, but to some degree, of course, decoding DNA in some, which concerns only organic life, to say the obvious, is perhaps finding this original plant. And going forward, as you might be well aware, it should be possible to mash together DNA anew and to produce from the primordial DNA new kinds of plants and animals and all kinds of monstrosities, and perhaps even also new kinds of human beings almost from scratch. And perhaps that is what Goethe was already getting at here. So this letter is a really striking letter. Again, there should be a translation of this somewhere. I wasn't able to find it. But this is, I think, Goethe at his most Faustian. So again, I hope that you can join me at my Goethe course on his Faust. We begin with Faust 1, and then next year we're going to read Faust Part 2 together. So hope to see you there. Thank you very much.